Here are some books that are on my TBR. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing a spring TBR, but mostly I'm going to try to aim to read these books in April. I know I usually don't post TBR videos, but I have since fallen off the track of reading, and I felt that if I have a set TBR, at least I have a goal to work towards which means that I hold myself accountable to all the books that I will be reading this month. Okay, so the first book that I do want to read is the latest release from Eva Leigh. This one is called The Good Girl's Guide to Rakes, and it's part of her new series called Last Chance Scoundrels, and I absolutely adore this cover. I think it's so rich and so beautiful. This one follows one of my favorite tropes, which is older brother's best friend trope. Our heroine is a very respectable lady. She always follows the rules, and she has a really great reputation, but she's tired of her life. She thinks that she is super boring and she wants to have a little bit of a thrill, so she enlists the help of her older brother's best friend. Her older brother's best friend is our hero, and he needs a wife right away. And the only way that he can find a suitable wife for him, he needs to actually enlist the help of her, so they both have this kind of agreement where they help each other out. It sounds to me that it is a friends to lovers romance, and I'm excited to read it. I think a couple of my friends have already read this book and they quite enjoyed it. Okay, so the next book that I want to read is actually a middle grade novel from one of my favorite middle grade authors out there called Kelly Yang. This one is a new book. I think it's a standalone novel, but it's called New From Here, and it's about an Asian American family that has immigrated from Hong Kong all the way to America, and they have to learn how to adjust. This book also takes place during the height of the pandemic. Our heroes' family is actually from Hong Kong, and then COVID-19 broke out, and then they decided that it would be a lot safer if they moved to America. So they moved to America, but then obviously there's a lot of racism towards the Asian race because COVID-19 originated from China, and you know the whole shebang and the whole story. So I expect this book to be informative and emotional a lot of the times, because Kelly Yang always writes an emotional, impactful story about immigrant parents and immigrant families. I'm excited to pick this one up very soon. Okay, so the next book that I want to pick up is a historical romance from one of a new historical romance authors that I don't think I picked up before, but this one is called How to Master Your Marquee by Juliana Gray, and I ended up buying the whole trilogy series off of Chapters Indigo, mostly because I just wanted to have the whole series just in case I fall in love with her writing. But I wanted to pick this one up specifically because this one sounds like our heroine actually disguises herself as a boy, and I love those tropes in historical romances. I just find that those stories are really interesting because our characters are putting themselves at risk of ruining their reputation, of causing a whole troubling scene in society. So our heroine is also a member of the royal family. She's actually a princess, and she disguises herself as a drab clerk, and then our hero notices and realizes who she is right away because our hero is very smart. And from the back of this book, it also sounds like he is a secret undercover agent, and that there is going to be a lot of danger in the way, and then now he has to kind of protect this royal family member. I'm excited to read more historical romance in the upcoming weeks, so this one should be really interesting. Okay, so the next book that I have here is actually a romantic fantasy novel, and I normally typically don't read a lot of fantasy novels, but after finishing Laura Thalassa's the Four Horsemen series, I've been in dire need of a dark romance, and I found this really beautiful book called River of Shadows by Karina Hall, and I absolutely was drawn in the cover. I was obviously really drawn into the synopsis of the book too as well. It sounds so dark, it sounds so mysterious. Basically, our heroine travels all the way to northern Finland for her father's funeral, only to realize that her father's body is missing, and there she is being swept up into this whole mystery and intrigue where her father is actually a powerful shaman, and then now someone's bringing her to this underworld to help find the father, because the father actually didn't die and the father was held captive. And it's only for her to be held captive by the god of death himself. Now, the thing about this book is that I told Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers about that I bought this book, and she told me that our friend Jessica from Peace Love Books actually read this book and thought it was just an average read. So hopefully I do enjoy this read more, because I really do need to fill that hole that Laura Thalassa actually created. So I don't know. I'm still excited to read it, and I think the cover is gorgeous to keep on my shelves anyways. Okay, so the next book that I have right here is this older novel that I have picked up a couple years ago, but I never got around to reading it because I just wasn't in the mood. But this one is called The Partner Track by Helen Wang, and now I wanted to pick this book up because I think Netflix is doing an adaptation of this book. They're making it into a TV series or maybe a movie, I'm not too sure. And this is Asian American representation at its finest. Basically, our heroine is a first generation Chinese American and she works for a big law firm, and she is making her parents proud, obviously, because she's earning a lot of money, she's working in a prestigious law firm, so on and so forth. But the problem with the law firm is that there is a lack of diversity, and our heroine is actually asked to spearhead the diversity, like, inclusion initiative at the firm. But the only thing that's holding her back is that she's actually really close to partnership, and so she thinks that this might actually hold her back from really landing her goal of becoming a partner of a firm, because she has to discuss everything that is wrong with the company and basically make herself sound like she's not happy at the firm when she is. So I don't know, I'm really excited to read these books, and if you guys have been watching my other videos, you guys would know that I've been reading a lot of books featuring women in the workplace who are very strong and who are very intelligent, just to motivate myself to work better in my work too as well. The next book that I have here is this one called One Italian Summer by Rebecca Surley, and now she is the author of In 5 Years, as well as another book that I've read that I really enjoyed too as well. It's called The Dinner List. So basically this one is a woman's fiction novel involving our heroine who, you know, has a really strong relationship with her mom. They're going to go to Italy for the summer vacation, but then what happens is that her mother unexpectedly passes away. So now she's dealing with all this grief. She doesn't know how to handle it. She lost a loved one and it's basically her best friend, but they still have this trip planned. So she decides to go to this trip by herself in memory of her mother. But the last thing that she expects is to actually go to Italy and then realize that a younger version of her mother exists there. And it's like this weird like situation where magic realism takes place and there's magic involved in Italy. I don't know, but it sounds like it's going to be the perfect read to read especially when we're entering into the warmer and hotter months. Obviously, I can't go to Italy right now, but I would love to go travel to Italy through books. Okay, so I'm moving on to another summer read themed book. This one's called One Night on the Island by Josie Silver. Now, she wrote the book One Day in December. I didn't really like that book, but Josie actually wrote this other book that I really liked called The Two Lives of Lydia Bird, so I'm willing to give her another chance for this one. I've since seen some of my viewers on my haul video comment about this book and said that they were iffy about this one, like they didn't know if they really liked it or not. So I'm a little bit nervous and hesitant of going into this book, but this one basically is about an opposites attract romance. Our heroine is turning 30. She expected more of her life. She expected more of herself, and she decides to travel to go to this cottage for the summer or something like that. And then that's where she meets our hero, who is also traveling there for the summer too as well, looking for rest and relaxation. And then both of them find themselves in a very sticky situation because mix up in bookings means that they both reserve like the same hideaway, so they both live in, I guess, like the cottage or cabin together. And then this one's kind of like forced close proximity. I'm excited to read this, even though a lot of people told me that it was an average read. Okay, so the next book that I do want to read is this one that's been released like a couple months ago. Everybody probably already read this already, and everybody probably already talked about it, but I never read it yet because I've been kind of just sitting on it because I don't want to wait for the next book to come out. But this one's called Electric Idol by Katie Roberts. This is like a Greek mythology romantic retelling. It is a darker romance, I would say. It's set in kind of like the present world, but then mixed with elements of fantasy. So it's kind of like urban fantasy. But basically this tells the story of Psyche and how she has to deal with Aphrodite soon. And then Eros is sent to go murder her because of like this whole feud. but then Eros can't do it because he thinks that she's captivating, that she's beautiful. And those are kind of like the stories that I love to read, where it's kind of like fated lovers. So I expect a lot from this book. I know a lot of people didn't really like Neon Gods, but I actually really enjoyed Neon Gods, so I'm excited to continue with the series, especially with this one. Okay, so the next book that I want to pick up is this one that was sent to me from the author herself. The author is Debbie Michiko Florence. She is a middle grade author, and I love her books. Her books are so freaking adorable, so freaking cute. It has Asian representation, which is so important to me, and this one is her latest book that comes out in the summer. This one's called Sweet and Sour. I can't wait to read it. It's an enemies to lovers romance. Basically, our heroine and our hero are best of friends until he humiliated her, and then he left the country and went back to Japan with his family. So she thought that it was over and done with until the family decides to return back to Connecticut. And then now they have to go to school together and face each other once again. I can't wait to read this book because I want to figure out why he humiliated her. And of course, there's going to be some miscommunication involved, but I'm excited to see him kind of apologize and her and him kind of being friends again. I think this one's going to definitely make me cry. Okay, so the next book that I want to pick up is the latest one from Mia Sosa. This one's called The Wedding Crasher, and she was the author of this book called The Worst Best Man. The Worst Best Man probably came out like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, and I loved The Worst Best Man. I thought the writing was beautiful. I thought that the story was great, and I've been highly anticipating like a next release from Mia, but then she kind of just took her time writing her book. So this is like the highly anticipated second book in the series, or set in the same world. Basically, our heroine is a wedding planner, or she helps the wedding planner, but then she stumbles upon a situation right before the couple is about to say their vows and to like tie the knot, and she convinces herself that this couple cannot be together. So the only way that she can stop this marriage and this mistake from happening is to actually crash the wedding. So she decides to destroy the wedding and everything, and so forth and so on. Our hero is on track to becoming a partner and at his firm, and the only way that he can become a partner is to make himself look like that he is a family man. So he decides to enlist the help of our heroine and to make everybody believe that they are together. So this one includes a fake dating trope as well. If I know Mia's writing well enough, I would know that this book will be so easy for me to sink into, and it'll be so easy for me to finish because all her books and her writing is just simply intoxicating. So the next book that I want to read is obviously this one called Four Aunties and a Wedding, and it's by Jessie Q. Satento, and basically she was the author of Dial A for Aunties, and Dial A for Aunties was not really like a romantic comedy novel. It was actually a mystery, a cozy mystery filled with romance. So this one follows the same character from Dial A for Aunties. So you would have to read that book before you read this book. But this is like the follow-up novel where our heroine is finally getting married to her high school sweetheart, and she's super excited for it until they realize that the venue or the vendor that they hired for the wedding, the family that owns the business might be from the mafia now, and she's overhearing conversations where the family is actually talking about taking out people. So she's gonna interfere and she's gonna try to stop a murder from happening. So I'm excited to read this one. I like Dial A for Aunties. It was definitely not what I expected, so I'm definitely gonna go into this book with lower expectations on romance and more expectations on, you know, mystery and comedy. Okay, so the last book that I want to read is this one called Savvy Sheldon Feels Good as Hell by Taj McCoy. And this one follows our heroine who is doing renovations in her house. And then she hires a contractor because she quickly realizes that she's in over her head and that there are many, many things to do when you're renovating a house. So that's when she kind of falls in love with the contractor. And she also has like a strong group of friends. So I expect this book to be kind of like borderline, like women's fiction, but mixed with romance too as well. Simply because of the emphasis of synopsis about how all the friends play a role into her developing her adulthood. But anyways, that is it for all the books that I do want to read this month or in the upcoming months. Hopefully you guys have some books to add to your TBR, and I'll see you guys again in a new video. Bye guys.